Hi, my name is Mike, and I'm here to read a comic. Today's comic is The Brady Bunch, issue number 2, dated May 1970. We have 4 pretty dreadful stories of one of America's favorite TV sitcom families. Take a look at the cover. It's a publicity shot. It's one of the more well-known ones because I've seen this used on the DVD. And the thing that stands out is that Chris Knight and Mike Lookingland are misidentified. But there's nothing that really stands out in any way, other than everyone looks great in this photo, though. It's just those bars that don't make any sense. And we're given a couple of the stories: why parents get gray, or 3 plus 3 equals too much. So I'm going to go into it. The first story is the Bradys want to go to a concert. And Marcia is all excited that Benjamin is coming to town. And Benjamin is the one that they're listening to on the stereo here. They're blasting the stereo so loudly that poor Alice has to vacuum with earmuffs on. I will say one thing. I think the creative team, such as they were, they did get better publicity shots. Or at the very least, they were shown at least a couple of episodes of this show. Because the rendering of the characters is much better. It's not good. Marcia and Jan look like Manson girls. And Mike and Greg kind of look like variations of Alfred E. Newman. But nevertheless, at least they got Alice right, where in the first issue, they just completely made up a different character. I think they were drawing on Hazel. I think that was Shirley Booth. So that was who their housekeeper was in the first issue. But here's a fairly good resemblance to... God damn it, what is her name? I totally forgot the actress who played Alice. So anyway, the kids are listening to the stereo. They're blasting it. We're hearing lyrics such as Yowie, Ook Ook, love is like a banana, Ooh Ooh, peel it and it's full of seeds, Zonk Zonk. So this is the music they're listening to. Oh, they must have, like, you know, they're like Bobby Sherman. Oh, screw that. The Monkees. They were like, no. This guy Benjamin is the best. I'm assuming that Benjamin is based on Donovan. But I'm not really sure myself. So I'm going to turn the page. So anyway, Marcia's trying to get the other kids' attention that Benjamin's coming to town. But the thing is, the music's so loud, they can't hear her over it. So Marcia resorts to actually turning off the stereo. And then she ducks for cover because she figures she's going to get massacred for that. However, kids are fairly calm about it, but it's Alice who's surprised by this. Marcia informs Alice, hey, I just turned off the music. Alice said, oh, that was music? I thought there was a problem with the vacuum cleaner. This is the thing that runs throughout these stories. It's very vaudevillian humor. So the same way that the episodes of the first season, and I'm going to go through the second half of the first season episodes later, it was still kind of a 1950s sitcom. The writers were kind of stuck, like, at least in the 1940s in terms of their humor. Very, very vaudevillian. So anyway, Alice is thinking that they swallowed a cat. They swallowed Fluffy. Fluffy, who never showed up after that pilot episode. And the reason why was that Sherwood Schwartz did not like working with cats because he found them too difficult. And it took him too long for them to do what they wanted them to do, whereas dogs tended to be doing things a lot faster. Going to turn the page. So anyway, Marcia's trying to explain to the kids, listen, man, Donovan is here. We need to see him in concert. But the thing is, even though the music's off, the kids can't hear her because apparently their ears are ringing at this point. And again, that's an old vaudevillian joke. These young whippersnappers are listening to this loud music. Why don't they listen to something with real class, like Bing Crosby or Frank Sinatra? So anyway, Marcia is just speaking louder and louder, but finally she's being so loud that now the kids are complaining that Marcia's yelling. So anyway, Marcia has their attention. She's explaining that, listen, this is the grooviest news ever, and that Donovan is coming to town. This is better than when miniskirts came into fashion, and we have to see Donovan. And the kids are all excited. Wow, neato, groovy, cool. Except for Cindy, who's like, what's a Benjamin? One thing that they were accurate was that they really infantiled Cindy, much to Susan Olsen's chagrin, because she was actually a lot smarter than the Cindy character, and it was just a huge embarrassment for her. But the one thing they did capture right in the comics is Cindy just being an innocent infant. Can turn the page. So anyway, the kids they immediately swarm on Mom, who is doing some housework here, and the kids are saying, "Listen, we need to see Benjamin in concert. He is coming to town. You cannot deny us this." But Carol is worried about what people will think from the Civil Defense Council if they come into the house for some reason. So Carol's being a little kind of status conscious here. She wants the pristine house, so everything's right in case they have visitors. So Carol is very much the social climber in this comic. She's also a strawberry blonde here. So the creators didn't get everything right. So anyway, the kids are pressing Mom for the tickets. Carol is like, "Listen, I can't make a decision like that. I have to talk to your dad. This involves money, it involves you guys staying out late. I really honestly don't want to make this decision. So I'm going to punt it to Dad." And then Dad comes home, and all the kids are really nice to him. Saying, can we take your coat? Can I give you a drink? Man, Dad, you look tired. You want to lay down? You can lay next to me. That's Greg talking. But Mike is like, what the hell's going on here? Why are you guys so nice to me? Turn the page. Mike is suspicious that the kids are being so nice. So he's thinking, hey, something really bad has happened. And Carol says, yes, something really bad has happened. Mike jumps to the conclusion that they have dropped the bomb. That somewhere, some nation just nuked a city in the United States. That is what Mike is thinking. Marcia's saying, no, it's not that, but it's just as important, and it's Benjamin. And Benjamin is coming to town, and we need to see him in concert. So anyway, the kids are kind of like pestering Dad here. Because remember, Carol dumped this all on Mike. And Mike is kind of dumping this on Carol, saying, listen, don't ask me, ask your mom. If your mom's okay with it, we'll do it. And Carol's saying, listen, I kind of tried to punt to Mike, and then Mike punts it back to me. But I knew I would make the decision ultimately. And turn the page. So anyway, it looks like Mike and Carol, they're in conference, and they made a decision. The kids can go see Benjamin in concert, but there's one condition. And Mike is asking for a kiss from all the kids. And I don't know if they get it because the kids run off. I don't know if Barry, Chris, or Mike kind of wanted to kiss Robert. But nevertheless, all the kids, they run away and they start cleaning up the house. So they're like, Dad, we really don't want to kiss you, but we'll clean the house for you. And Carol's just kind of joking about the generation gap. And that's, again, another vaudevillian thing that comes up. Going to turn the page. So Alice is checking out the kids. And they are in their grooviest clothes. We have Greg. He has a Nuru jacket on. He has that big ass medallion. Marcia, she has her hippie clothes on. Jan actually looks kind of somewhat stylish. The others, they have their checkered and striped pants, and Cindy has her little girly dress. So they're all set. And the thing is that the concert is 3 hours from now. But Marcia's saying, hey, we need to get Mom and Dad to hurry up because we have to be there early. So it turns out that Mike and Carol are also going to go to the concert. And what they did is they're dressed in 1940s clothing. For vaudevillian reasons. You know, the writer of this was, I'm sure, nowhere near a teenager. So Carol is talking about Frankie and Johnny Ray and Dick Himes, you know, the classics. So they're demonstrating that Mike and Carol are like, you know, decades behind. But the thing is that the era that they're representing, they were just born into at that time. You figure Mike and Carol were probably listening to Elvis. And they're not as out of sync as, say, most TV parents were at that time. Because there was a lot of playing up the generation gap. The kids are embarrassed by the appearance of their parents, and that is somewhat universal because I'm sure every person has had a moment where their parents were wearing something that was really embarrassing. I know it's something I went through. Gonna turn the page. So anyway, the kids crowd into the station wagon. They look kind of bored here. I guess they're really depressed over the way their parents are dressed. They're like, we're doing the coolest thing ever, or the grooviest thing ever. We are going to see Benjamin, but we have these two embarrassments of parents with us. So that's kind of killing the vibe here. So anyway, Marcia is saying that basically, if there's a car accident, the people are going to see you dressed this way. And this is going to be really embarrassing. So this is where Marcia's priorities are. So anyway, they arrive at the concert. We see these kids. They're getting all excited. We see this one couple here with this really kind of creepy Tobey Maguire looking guy. And he's putting on the moves with a girl who's probably maybe 15 at most. So anyway, it turns out that Mike and Carol actually aren't going to go into the stadium. They're just going to drop the kids off and then wait until the concert ends, and then they'll pick them up again. So as Mike and Carol are driving off in the purple station wagon, they get home and they are watching Lawrence Welk. And Mike, Carol, and Alice, they're just so happy that they don't have to listen to Benjamin. And they're listening to real music like Lawrence Welk. And that's the end of that first dreadful story. The second story is Home Sweet Home. This is actually based somewhat on an episode that had aired. This is when they go on the camping trip. So anyway, it looks like the Bradys, they're going to go out for the weekend. They're planning this huge picnic. So it doesn't look like they're going to be camping overnight. But nevertheless, they're going to have a huge picnic. It looks like they're loading up the station wagon to capacity here. Because the thing is, the joke is that they're taking everything from home with them. So the whole idea of going on a picnic is to kind of escape from home, but they're bringing so much stuff they might as well stay where they are. And we see some of the kids are just having some struggles with all the stuff that they're taking, except for Bobby, who has to deal with Tiger here. Gonna turn the page. So anyway, everything is coming to a head here as all the stuff that they're planning on taking is about to crash. Mike sees the crash coming, and then it comes, and then Mike kind of closes his eyes because he doesn't want to see the wreckage. And it turns out that his wife and Alice and most of the kids, except for Cindy, are kind of stuck in this avalanche of material items here, like blankets, footballs, various magazines, and so forth, and chairs. And Cindy's just saying, I just love picnics. They're fun. So Cindy is kind of being portrayed as being severely autistic. She has vague notions of what's going on, but she's not really involved in it. And she's mostly, when she does talk about it, she's sort of just centering herself, just talking about how much she loves this and loves that. So she's not really engaging with the others in any meaningful way. And turn the page. So anyway, Mike, he packs the station wagon. He does a meticulous job. He's an architect, so he knows how to place things. And everything's set and it's completely packed. Cindy is asking that her one doll be included. But Mike is saying, no, we have enough stuff here. We have to sacrifice, and your creepy little doll is the sacrifice. However, Cindy starts crying, and Mike says, I can't stand that. I can't take that. That's the secret weapon. Fine, we'll take the doll just to shut you up, Cindy. And then Carol's giving Mike a lesson, saying, you just haven't learned about women, have you, Mike? And just saying that, all she has to do is cry and just be a nuisance and an annoyance, and Mike will just give in. Can I turn the page? Yeah, Carol here kind of looks more like Lucille Ball than Florence Henderson. So anyway, Mike is lecturing the kids, saying everything is set and that, we're prepared to go. Everyone is cramped into the station wagon, including Alice. Alice is suggesting that maybe the girls need to lose a little weight because she's having trouble sitting on the seat here. Alice's fat ass is taking up more room than anyone else, but she's suggesting that someone else lose weight, including these two barely 5-foot girls who probably weigh like 120 pounds combined. So anyway, Mike is about to start the engine, and they're getting ready to go. So they're all set, except for Carol. Carol cries out that she forgot to turn off the oven. But the thing is, Mike hasn't started the car yet. So at this point, Mike is saying, just turn off the oven. Just go inside, turn off the oven. Gonna turn the page. So a few minutes later, Carol has turned off the oven. Everything appears to be set. Some of the kids are fighting in the back of the station wagon. Mike is yelling at the kids to stop arguing. He's had enough. But the thing is, it looks like a bicycle handle that they took along from a bike hits Mike right in the eye. So at this point, Mike has a black eye. Carol's saying, listen, maybe I should get some ice for it. But Mike is suggesting, hey, maybe I need a brain surgeon to deal with all of you. So anyway, Carol notices that Bobby needs something. And Bobby is whispering to Carol, to Mom, and Carol is saying to Mike, listen, we got to hold up. Basically, the little shit has to take one. So at this point, Bobby has to go to the restroom. So that's just another delay in the way that Mike's thinking of it. Gonna turn the page. So finally, Bobby took his crap. I'm sure Mommy had to wipe his butt. And they're getting ready to go. And Mike, who has the black eye, is saying, listen, we are finally going. And he checks in with everyone. He's saying, listen, do you guys need to do something before we go? Everyone's set to go. Then Mike starts the car, and suddenly one of the rear tires goes flat. So all that time wasted, all it did was it deflated one of the tires, which honestly maybe it's kind of a good thing, because it's better that it happens here than on the highway or something. Gonna turn the page. So anyway, Mike has to change the tire, which means he has to take a lot of the stuff out of the station wagon, because that's the only way he can use the jack. Mike is the only one doing any work, so he's kind of ticked off here, and he's yelling at Carol here. And Carol's saying, listen, stop yelling. The kids are going to hear you. You might have a heart attack. Just relax. But the thing is, Mike is really pissed off here. And he's saying, listen, I don't care anymore. I really don't care anymore. I just want to get this done with. So he's holding the tire, but he's so angry he lets it slip, and then it hits him right in the foot. And Mike now has a sore foot. Again, with the vaudevillian humor, Mike is he's trying to repair the station wagon's tire. And the kids are occupying themselves with the stuff that was taken out of the station wagon. So it looks like Greg and Bobby are playing catch. It looks like Marcia, I think, wants to read a book. Marcia or Jan. And Cindy wants to play with her doll. Gonna turn the page. Carol is saying to Alice, listen, we might as well get comfortable, because this doofus, he's not gonna do this quick. And so Alice is preparing to get all the sandwiches. So the food that they were planning on eating wherever they were going to picnic, they're going to eat right now. Carol is offering lemonade to the kids.
Lemonade. That cool, refreshing drink.
Alice is offering some fried chicken. I guess maybe that's the thing. Honestly, I don't know people who fry chicken at home. So anyway, there's a full-blown picnic here. Carol and Alice, they're just enjoying the moment together. They're just relaxing. The girls are just talking to each other, Marcia and Jan. Cindy wants some more lemonade, while the boys are playing catch, except for Bobby, who's eating the sandwich here. So anyway, Mike has completed his job. He changed the tire, and he's ready to get everyone going. But the thing is, Carol's saying, listen, we just had our picnic already. We're all settled in. We're just going to have our picnic here at home. And Mike is just thinking that, what a life. What a crazy life. And that's dreadful story number 2, I believe. Okay, number 3 is What's Got 12 Feet and No Shoes? And it's the Brady's. Because it turns out all of the kids' shoes have worn down. They all have holes, and they all need new shoes. And Carol sees this as a nightmare. Because this is a financial nightmare, because she has to buy new footwear for the kids. I do sort of vaguely remember a brief mention of worn down clothing in one of the episodes. Greg's pants were like shredded. I think that was the closest they had to that. And there was the hand-me-downs. Earlier there was a scene where they were going to buy new clothing for Marcia and Greg because they're growing the biggest, and that the other kids can just take their hand-me-downs. And Jan and Peter were not happy with that arrangement. So again, I think this was somewhat based on maybe that episode. Gonna turn the page. So anyway, Carol has to deliver the bad news to Mike, and that this extra expense that they weren't prepared for, you have to be prepared for it now. And Mike just happens to be looking at the bills. He's writing out checks. He's paying his bills. Mike Brady pays his bills, but doesn't mean he likes doing it. And he's realizing how much these bills are adding up. So the thing is, Carol has to explain, listen, you're going to have this big expense right now at a time where Mike is saying, I really don't want another expense. So anyway, Carol is preparing Mike, saying, listen, don't get upset. Don't take it out on me. That was kind of a sad fact back then. And it's kind of, it's still happens today. But anyway, Mike is initially kind of like saying, listen, nothing can upset me. I am relaxed and maxed. You just tell me what you need to tell me. So anyway, Carol says that all of the kids need new shoes. And then Mike does a 180. He's considerably worried. The pen that he, I think, had in his mouth, he bites in half. Smoke is coming out of his ears. And Carol, it looks like Carol's breaking the third wall by saying, really, he's the nicest guy in the world. He just told me so himself. So it's kind of like, this is, I think, the only time they break the third wall. Can I turn the page? So anyway, this is a problem for Mike because he really was not expecting this expense. Money issues, I think, rarely came up in the Bradys. There was, I think, when Alice initially wanted to leave, Mike was saying, oh, I just need to offer her a raise. I think that was the closest. And then in some of the episodes that I'll talk about, like To House or Not to House, finances came up. So anyway, Mike, who normally isn't a cheap guy, Mike Brady is not a cheap guy, but he's still concerned that he's going to have to buy 6 pairs of shoes for the kids. Honestly, Mike, you have a trad wife, and you give your trad wife a housekeeper. I mean, dude, seriously. I mean, if you didn't think your one salary was going to cover everything, maybe you should have Carol working. And, maintaining Alice, too. So I'm not sympathetic toward this guy. But it turns out Carol also needs new shoes. Because, she has holes in her shoes. So Mike's like, listen, oh boy, her shoes are going to be way more than all 6 of those kids. So Mike is really prepared. Alice knows about this drama because Mike was kind of like, well, can't you guys go barefoot? I mean, there are hippies out there. But Alice is saying, listen, I knew you'd give in. I knew you wanted your brood to have shoes, and shoes without holes in them. There were times in high school I had to wear sneakers with shoes, and oh boy, that was really embarrassing. So anyway, Mike has realized he has to pay out this expense. Now, mind you, he's thinking he's going to be buying maybe, I think, 1 pair per kid. But the thing is, if they buy 1 pair, they're not going to rotate their footwear. And that's just going to make them wear out again. And they're going to wear them out again at the same time. So Mike is, this is a situation you're better off not being cheap. If you have the money. And Mike Brady, he should have the money. Carol's saying, listen, I'm going to be as sensible as possible. And Mike seems to be a little leery of that because he's not sure Carol's sense of sensibility matches his own. So yeah, they're going to, I don't know what the hell they're trying to convey in this next panel. And I'm not even going to bother explaining it. Going to turn the page. So anyway, Carol and the kids, they're heading to the shoe store. And they're walking around town, and this is clearly a city here. It doesn't look like a city in Southern California because they're really honestly not dressed for it. There's still guys wearing fedoras. And that gives you an idea of just how old this talent was. So anyway, they noticed the traffic cop, and they do remember the traffic cop. And apparently the traffic cop flipped out when he encountered the Bradys. And the weird thing is, and it's a running theme in this vaudevillian type story, is that, whenever the Bradys come, they're viewed as a disaster, even though they're extremely well behaved and they're very organized. But the fact that there's so many of them apparently causes these professional people to freak out. The traffic cop remembered that horrible experience in dealing with the Bradys when he ushered them from one side of the street to another as they orderly walked to the corner. And that was the thing about this story, is that it's the number of Bradys that's the problem, and not their behavior, because they're behaving very well. So anyway, they go into the shoe store, and the shoe salesman remembers them, and he kind of dreads them coming in. Gonna turn the page, because again, it was he remembered how many there were. It didn't matter that these were the best behaved kids in Southern California. There were 6 of them. I'm like, dude, you made 6 sales. I mean, knock it off. So we got this bad vaudevillian humor where he's just being overwhelmed with individuals. He asks the kids to stick out their feet so he can measure them, but they all stick their feet out together, and he freaks out over this. He honestly can just grab one of the kids and just do what he had to do. They're kids. You don't have to be as polite with Carol. Carol you can't do that with, even though that'd be kind of hot if you could. So anyway, the shoe salesman, he's just kind of freaking out over how many Bradys there are. Gonna turn the page. So it turns out the Bradys are kind of picky. He's going shoe after shoe. So there's this huge mountain of shoe boxes, because they're just so picky. And it turns out the shoe man, he lost his shoes in the shoe crowd here, the shoe storm. He lost his shoes in the shoe storm, which is, I guess, kind of a joke. The salesman is happy that they only have to deal with the Bradys twice a year. How dare he have to deal with 7 paying customers at one time? So honestly, he should be happy to see these people every month. And they all walk out. They're all carrying the shoes shopping bags. So the shoe salesman is saying, listen, my business is going to get a lot of publicity. There are 7 of you. You have 7 bags. People are going to see my name. So that's kind of the joke there. Going to turn the page. So anyway, we get to the traffic cop. The traffic cop freaks out because he sees 7 people on the corner wanting to cross the street. And again, these are the best behaved people in Southern California, but for some reason, because there's so many of them, it's causing this police officer to freak out. Then after they get past him, they head for the bus. They all board the bus. And now the bus driver is like saying, "Ay, mamma mia, what are these old kids here?" And it's just, again, this lame, corny humor. And these kids are being so well behaved. Some of them are even smiling. Okay, Marcia and Jan, they kind of look like Manson girls. He might be nervous about those two. Because if you look at this drawing, yeah, they're definitely knife someone. Gonna turn the page. So anyway, we're heading to the conclusion. The kids all go in the house. They have their new shoes. They don't have to walk around with holes in them. The entire school must be laughing at the Bradys, all of them at the same time. So anyway, Carol's relieved. She's like, God damn it, there are 6 kids. I didn't know how much work that would be. I guess I'm used to them kind of just laying around the house. Alice sees that Mike is coming home. Mike looks a little dejected, a little tired, and then he corners Carol in the kitchen. Mike is putting the moves on, and he's just saying, "Listen, I know this was an expense. It was an unexpected expense, but damn it, I love all of those kids. I love all 6 of them, particularly my boys, and I don't want them to be embarrassed by not having good shoes." But then it turns out all their pants, I guess they wear one pair of pants, they all have holes in them. And that's the continuous cycle. So yeah, that story thankfully is over. The next one is Fair is Fair. And this is definitely based on one of the episodes. This is based on the clubhouse, when they build the secret clubhouse, and it's a boy-girl thing. So this one is based on the episode. I'm assuming now they didn't have like what you would think as video, like VHS or even beta. They had something called U-matics. I don't know if say Italy had them, or the trouble of taking them, but if they did watch the show, either one of the artists came over to America, or they brought maybe a U-matic tape, or maybe 16 millimeter tape to show the artist, okay, this is what the show looks like, this is how you have to render them. The Marvel would often talk about that, where they would get to see early previews of films, because they had to have an idea of how to draw the comic and what tone to give it. And I believe that Roy Thomas, Mike Kaluta, and the inker, and I forgot his name, maybe Klaus Janson, I'm not sure, they saw the very first viewing, the rough cut of Star Wars. And the rough cut was so rough that when they showed the fight scenes with the Millennium Falcon and those stormtrooper fighters, they had to use like WW2 war footage in place of that, because that's how rough the cut was. So this is like the first time anyone's seen Star Wars. I think Brian De Palma, well, obviously George Lucas was there. He invited, Steven Spielberg, Brian De Palma. The Marvel artists had to be there because they had to know what the film looked like. And if you read the Star Wars Marvel adaptation, the prologue is different than in the movie, and that's because they had changed it suddenly. I spent way too much time on that because I really didn't want to spend much time on this story. So anyway, it looks like the boys, they built a tree house here. So this is like Ewok 2000. And one of the rules here is that no girls are allowed. This is a boy place. Dad can come up, he feels extra comfortable. We honestly don't know why. But nevertheless, the boys are saying that, we have this rule, no girls allowed, don't blame me. The sign is telling me I have to do this. So the boys are making it clear that the girls aren't welcomed. And Jan is being a little sarcastic here. You normally didn't see sarcasm from Jan. But Marcia's kind of taking the lead, saying, listen, what's fair is fair. If you're going to exclude us from this space, we're going to find other spaces, and we're going to find a way of excluding you. Cindy, once again, isn't fully engaged with what's going on. Again, she's treated like an infant, where she's so innocent and wide-eyed that she can only center herself. And she's just talking about, she feels sad about why she can't engage in this activity that she doesn't have any interest in engaging in. I'm going to turn the page. So anyway, the boys are saying you to the girls, basically, you suck, you don't know what you're doing. And you need to watch us boys, know how to put this Ewok village into place, which again happened because you remember in the episode, the girls were not competent in building their clubhouse, and it almost injured Sydney. And the boys rightfully saw that as, well, this is too far. And that was really dangerous. And they were scared for Cindy. Here, I don't know why I went on that tangent. So anyway, Bobby, he slams his thumb on a hammer here. So the girls are laughing at Bobby's misfortune, and Bobby's crying out for mommy. He's thinking he might have a broken bone, and again, Manson girls, Marcia and Jan, they're taking pleasure in this. So anyway, Marcia is taking the lead, and she has an idea, and that they're going to destroy the boys. Now, one of the things that kind of rings true here and what I saw on the show was that, honestly, these kids enjoyed yelling at each other. And as much as people have these kind of loving memories of the kids getting along for the most part, the most memorable parts of the Bradys, and honestly the best acting that I saw from those from the kid actors, were when they were angry with each other. Those negative emotions, they were really good at. So anyway, we see those negative emotions here. So Marcia's being very spiteful, and they're going to come up with some plans to kind of really ruin the boys. Jan, she is channeling Susan Atkins here with her Manson girl laugh, and Cindy's like kind of a little bit more involved, but she's like saying, listen, tree houses are crappy, but the tree is nice. That's what Cindy's saying. So anyway, the boys, they're wondering why the girls are so quiet, because it's not like them to back away from a fight, particularly one that they're very passionate about. So they're very suspicious of this, and they're going to check on where the girls are. You can turn the page. So anyway, they try to enter through the front door, but there's a sign that says no boys allowed, keep out. So they made the unilateral decision to outcast their own brothers. Hey, we don't have to talk about this with mom and dad or even Alice. We'll make an exception for Tiger. That's the only boy, because he's a good boy, that we'll allow. The others, they have to stay out and they have to sleep in the garage. They're making the point that, hey, this is our house too. And the girls are making the point is that tree house is our house too. So the girls' logic is that, if we're sharing this house, we share all houses on this property. And that tree house that you're making, you have to share it with us. Now, the thing is, an argument can be said, okay, it was the boys who were building the tree house. But the thing is that if they had asked the girls, I'm sure all three of them would have volunteered. The Bradys would really help each other. The boys are saying that's different. The girls are saying no, it's not. And that everything in the house is half theirs now. So what the girls are saying basically is that all of the boys' property, half of it belongs to the girls. That's their stance. And following that logic, I guess half of what the girls have, belongs to the boys. But we don't see Greg and Peter fighting over Marcia's pair of pantyhose, though. I'm gonna turn the page. So the boys don't like this. So this is a fight they really kind of don't want to do. But time has passed, and maybe the boys are kind of fortifying themselves, and they have a plan how to deal with the girls. The girls are wondering why the boys aren't, kind of engaged. They've been away from them for a long time. They might be up to something sneaky. So it turned out the boys agreed with the girls that, half the treehouse is theirs. So what they did is they took a saw and they cut the treehouse in half. And the part of the treehouse that collapsed belongs to the girls. So it's kind of like dog rules, where if it works, it belongs to me, but if it's broken, it belongs to you. So those are the rules that the boys are following. Manson girl, Marcia and Jan, they're not happy about this. They might be heading to the kitchen, grabbing those knives. Cindy may have cooled them down with her baby act. So yeah, the boys are pretty thankful for that. So anyway, the boys are tired of being in the treehouse. They feel they made the point, and that they can just continue on with their day. And what they're going to do is they're going to ride their bikes around the neighborhood. And turn the page. However, it turns out that all of the rear tires are missing. And they don't understand why their bikes are in this condition. And then the girls, looking really evil, particularly Marcia here, they're saying that, hey, we just took our half of those bikes. So again, they're claiming ownership of the bikes, and they're saying, listen, well, I'm going to take my tire. One tire is yours, one tire is mine. The boys are furious. They thought they had settled the matter, but they're declaring war on the girls. Jan is wondering whether they went too far. Marcia's agreeing. She might be saying, hey, when we went to the Tate house, we weren't expecting to go that far. And Cindy doesn't want to be in a war. So at this point, the girls have some buyer's remorse as to maybe they pushed the boys too far. But the thing is that Marcia hears her records being played. So someone's playing Davy Jones or Bobby Sherman, and I'm going to turn the page. David Cassidy. So anyway, it turns out the boys are listening to the girls' records, and the boys are saying that, listen, half of that record collection is ours, and we want to listen to it. What's this Menudo band you're listening to now? So anyway, the boys are listening to the music pretty loudly here, but Jan notices that one of the speakers is missing. So anyway, Marcia and Jan, they don't understand where the speaker is. And Peter is telling them that the speaker is in the treehouse. So, the boys are saying, hey, 2 speakers, one belongs to you, one belongs to me. So it's kind of playing this tit for tat. The girls are saying, okay, nice play, but, you just wait till Dad comes home. So it looks like the girls, they kind of want to stop, but they don't want to back down either. But the thing is, they think the boys will be in more trouble. So the two, you guess Mike and Carol will evaluate what happened and figure out, well, this side is more wrong. The boys, they don't understand why the girls are so quiet. And it turns out the girls are playing with their AFX track, if you remember that. But the thing is that half the track is missing. So the boys wonder, hey, where's the full track that goes in a circle? Going to turn the page. It turns out the girls donated it to a kid in the neighborhood. Poor kid, he doesn't have much. And we'll just give him half of this junky-ass track. And he can try to keep himself entertained in a house that has no electricity. So anyway, the girls they're just stealing from the boys at this point. The boys are going to get even. They I think grab one of the girls' piggy banks, which did show up in an episode. So the boys take all the money from the piggy banks, and they're saying, okay, even Steven. And Greg is saying, listen, I'm going to take this money and buy some ice cream. And the boys are excited about this. And then Greg sees Marcia or Jan, because it's hard to tell with this art, in one of his drawers. Not the drawers he's wearing, his dresser drawers. And she grabs some of Greg's baseball cards. And that rings true. We know Greg is a baseball fan. And she's saying, listen, I'm going to take my half of these cards, and I'm going to sell them to that weird kid down the block, and I'm going to buy a poster of Tom Jones. You know, you know, even when the Bradys they start maybe kind of looking at robbing the grave, looking for an older man, you know they were going to pick Tom Jones or some ilk like that. Gonna turn the page. So anyway, the parents show up. They finally show up. Apparently, they had a kind of a busy night on the town. Maybe they went to a charitable event, or maybe there was some type of architecture a society meeting, and they're having this big business dinner. I had never gone to one. And it's weird because watching sitcoms, it made me think that at some point in my life I would go to sort of one of these business dinner events. So anyway, Carol's kind of hinting that, she kind of knows what's going on with the kids, everything going half and half. So Carol has she has a little bit more knowledge than Mike does at this point, because she kind of knows what's going on. Mike, again, this is like startling. This is like the out of touch dad trope. Who doesn't know what's going on around him, which wasn't true of Mike Brady. He was pretty much on point in terms of what the kids were doing. So he wasn't really surprised too often. But he's surprised by this. Someone has painted a yellow stripe down the line. The kids have decided they're going to split the entire house unilaterally. And the boys are on one side, girls are on another. You figure Alice is going to have to pick a side. She's probably going to pick the boys simply because Mike is the one who's paying her salary. So this might not be a good arrangement because Alice might not be washing their underwear. So anyway, and that's the end of that terrible story. So now I'm going to talk about the second half of the episodes from the first season. And I thought there were some pretty good episodes here. There were some very classic episodes. But there were more episodes that I tuned out of in this half than the first half. I kind of mostly paid attention to all the episodes in that I had talked about in the Brady Bunch issue number 1. But here, there were a couple episodes where I just honestly did not care about what was going on. So I'm going to take a look at the first one. This is Father of the Year. This is when Marcia, she submits an essay about why her new stepdad is really great. But the thing is that in that journey to write this essay, she is put into certain situations where it appears that she's being disobedient, and Mike actually has to lay down boundaries, which means that there are consequences for Marcia's actions, even though we as the audience know that she is completely well-meaning. Nevertheless, she is caught breaking boundaries. But nevertheless, even though she's being punished, she still doesn't change her faith in her dad. And this shows in her essay, and it's the winning essay. And then Mike finds out that all that rule breaking that Marcia was doing and what she was being punished for, because she wasn't allowed on the ski trip, maybe he shouldn't have done that. And we don't know whether Marcia is still punished, because even though Marcia had good intentions, she still broke those rules. This episode also had the infamous "math is hard" moment where Marcia just needed Dad to show her how to fix this math problem, and she immediately implied that her mother's a dumbass in math. That was an infamous thing. I think there was a Barbie doll that had "math is hard" as one of the things when you pull the cord. Yeah, the ski trip thing was interesting for me because it was presented as a really fun thing. But the people I know who skied, they have the worst knees. and they talk about how dangerous it is and how easily you can get injured, and even if you do it right, you're just killing your knees. And I thought there was a nice moment with Marsha and Jan where the two are kind of sharing a secret, and they are being like, sisterly. And I kind of really like that. I think the only issue with this episode was Mike Brady won that contest based on Marsha's writing ability. It doesn't necessarily mean that Mike Brady was the best dad around. It just means that Marsha can really write very well. So that kind of stuck in my head. The next episode is 5440 and Fight. I completely tuned out of this episode. I did not care about it. The next episode is Mike's Horoscope. Horror rather than horoscope. This was an interesting episode in that it focused on Mike and Carol and not the kids. In fact, the kids don't really show up until like literally 10 minutes into the episode. I did notice Robert Reed was much more engaged in this episode than any other episode. He enjoyed doing this episode, and he enjoyed doing this episode because that was the show he thought he was signing up for. He thought it was going to be a little bit more serious, but he thought it was going to be a show focused on the parents. And it turned out to be a show focused on the kids, and he's just kind of playing against them. So I know that bothered him, even though he was a good trooper. He stuck with the role the entire series run, but I'm sure that bothered him. And in this episode, he's much more engaged. This is also when it started having a more 70s look, in my opinion. The previous episodes, they kind of looked like they were shot in 1965. But in this episode, it kind of felt, okay, they're starting to get into the 1970s. And I thought there was another interesting part where I think Mike and Carol talk about adopting a pet, even though they have Tiger. And they did have trouble with the two tigers. One of them was, I believe, killed in a car accident. The second tiger was actually fired by Robert Reed. Robert Reed loved animals, but he did not like that second tiger. And it got on his nerves, and he kind of was saying, listen, we got to get rid of this dog. And that dog left. That dog gained a lot of fame because that's the dog that is in a movie called A Boy and His Dog. If you have not seen A Boy and His Dog, shame on you. That is one of the greatest films ever. And that dog in it is amazing. And they were actually serious consideration for giving that dog an Oscar nomination for Best Supporting Actor because the dog was so good. But he was terrible on the Brady Bunch. He was awful. And Robert Reed got rid of him. The next episode is The Undergrad. This is the Wes Parker episode. Wes Parker was a fairly well-known player in the late 60s, early 70s. He had one big year, but he was kind of one of those steady guys. And he's kind of like the first sports celebrity that was on the show. In this episode, Greg has a crush on his math teacher, a very pretty actress. But what stood out for me in this episode was that at times Greg called his dad sir. So again, it's sort of like enforcing that very traditional family dynamic. I also found it interesting that phrases such as Asian flu and jungle fever were also in this script. And the episode did make clear that Mike did talk about sex to the boys. One of the weirdest parts was when Mike, Carol, and Alice were pumping the kids for information because they knew Greg had a crush, but they didn't know who specifically he had the crush on. So anyway, Alice is asking Cindy, does she know? And that was weird and creepy because it says that Alice thinks that Greg is looking at girls Cindy's age. And I don't know if the writers fully thought that out. But yeah, that was bothersome. But I did like another scene, and it was one with Marcia and Greg. And Marcia was talking about the various celebrities that she feels like she needs to see in a kind of a boyfriend. And I'm going to go on the site and I'm going to check those names. Okay, so some of the names that Marcia drops are Steve McQueen. So at this point, we can assume that Marcia has seen Bullet. The next one is a celebrity. I have no idea who he is. I'm gonna skip him. And then she names Paul Newman. And again, I'm thinking what films Marcia would have seen, at least HUD at this time. Maybe Cool Hand Luke. So we have to assume she saw that. Next, she mentions Dustin Hoffman. So at this point, we know Marcia has probably seen The Graduate, where Hoffman is kind of banging a middle-aged woman. So we know Marcia has seen that. And she might have seen Midnight Cowboy, which has a lot of homosexuality in it. So Marcia may have been aware of that too. And then she name drops Dean Martin. And again, okay, what was Dean Martin doing other than getting drunk? I don't know. So that's kind of a look at probably some of the movies that Marcia Brady may have seen. The next one is Tiger. This is when Tiger has a long spell of not being around, for lack of a better word. And this is really Bobby's moment to show his love for Tiger, because he's the most concerned about Tiger. One of the things I noticed is that neither one of the tigers really liked interacting with the kids. And the kids honestly did not seem to really like Tiger very much. They seemed kind of indifferent to the dog. The dog was completely indifferent to them. You can tell the dog did not want to be close to these kids. But nevertheless, this is the episode, where they have to find Tiger. And it's interesting, Bobby is the one who gives Mike the lecture, because to Bobby, Tiger is a brother, whereas to Mike, Tiger is just a pet. So it's not that he didn't love Tiger, but the thing is, he does not view Tiger as anything other than a pet, and it's clear that Bobby views Tiger as a brother. So Mike is shamed, and he searches for Tiger, and I think in this episode, Mike checks on the boys as they're sleeping to make sure everything's all right. And I noticed that the first time I saw that, Robert Reed kissed the kids, but in this time he didn't do it. I'm wondering if maybe Sherwood said, "Hey, dude, please don't kiss the kids, the boys." Just saying. And I know there was a lot of emphasis on seatbelts in this episode. And it was around this time the government was sort of really educating people on seatbelt safety. And eventually they had to pass laws, and those laws were correct. But at the time, people had, including myself, I had a very lackadaisical attitude about seatbelts. I didn't think they were necessary, and boy, I was wrong. And I'm glad I, woke up from that. And I think another thing that was interesting is that toward the end, it started turning into kind of like Home Alone. And then, And then we find out that Tiger was basically banging the neighbor's dog. The next episode is the big sprain. This is when Alice sprains her ankle, so she can't do the work. So the kids have to step up. This is actually something I saw in the first issue of the Brady Bunch. But so at least that kind of played out to real life. One of the things I noticed was how animated Maureen McCormick and Eve Plum were. Those two enjoyed yelling at each other. And I heard there was kind of some friction between the two. One source of friction that I heard, apparently the three girls shared a trailer. And Eve was usually naked in that trailer. And this kind of bothered the other two, particularly Maureen. And I think Eve would just say, get over it. So I know there was some tension, at least from that, between these two, because those two really kind of enjoyed yelling at each other. And I thought Greg and Marcia also had a nice little moment together, too. The next episode is Brace Yourself. This is one of the classic episodes. This is Marcia Needs Braces. This episode is one of the most iconic because it touches on insecurity. And the whole episode is Marcia dealing with her insecurity. And insecurity is something that everyone goes through when they're young. It was really bad for me for the longest time. And so I think this was kind of a universal episode. Something else I noticed is that Robert Reed, I think, had sideburns in this episode. I think they went away quickly, but again, this is like it was moving toward the 70s. And I thought another interesting part was when the other kids, were accusing Marcia of being boy crazy. She's boy crazy. She likes the boys now, and Robert Reed, bless him, he said, "There's nothing wrong with being boy crazy," and I'm sure that line kind of sung to his heart. And I also thought this was a really great looking episode. And I think one of the appeals of the Brady Bunch was how photogenic the entire cast was and how bright the colors were on screen. And they all look really good in this episode. And the next episode is The Hero. This is, again, classic episode. In this episode, Peter saves a young girl from a falling display case that almost injures her. And I thought what was interesting about the episode was that they did a great job of creating a really dangerous situation. They did not half-ass it or pretend it was something bigger than it was. The situation looked pretty dangerous. And I thought, that was good production value. Another thing was with the lonely party, because Peter was alienating everyone with his him regaling his heroics. He wore a terrible shoes. Those shoes were horrible. They looked like these weird moonwalker shoes. On top of the green suit he had on. So the fashion sense in this episode is so funny. The next one is The Possible Dream. This was an interesting episode. The premise is that, Marcia has her diary. The diary was accidentally given away to a charity by Cindy, who unknowingly, did it. She didn't know what that thing was, other than it matched what, the guy was taking away. And what was interesting was the dynamic between Marcia and Cindy, because it was a complete accident. but at the same time, Marcia is completely freezing Cindy out. Like, I don't care if you did it by accident. I'm going to treat it like you did this on purpose. And I think that's kind of a universal thing. Also, Desi Arnaz Jr. There's one other thing I should mention. This episode had the most inappropriate conversation ever in a Brady Bunch episode, and I think that includes the skinny dipping scene. And this is when Mike was speaking to, I think, an owner of a bookstore, played by Gordon Jump, who was on WKRP in Cincinnati. And so Mike is looking for the diary, and he says, and Gordon Jump's character is making all these sexual assumptions, to the point where Mike mentions, his daughters, and he goes, daughters, never heard of that one. And it was like the most inappropriate scenes, because you basically, this guy's kind of like saying, hey, if you're doing it with your daughters, that's pretty hot. So that's something that was really surprising. Also, Desi Arnaz Jr. One, he was a really good-looking guy. And two, he completely towered over Maureen McCormick. And that was kind of funny to watch. I think what had happened is that because Desi Arnaz Jr. made the guest appearance on the Brady Bunch, it was expected that Maureen McCormick would reciprocate and appear on the Lucy Show, because those are the kind of arrangements her Lucille Ball would make, saying, listen, if you want to use my kids, great, but your guys are going to have to show up on my show, because she definitely wanted that crossover audience. And she was probably hoping that if there were people watching the Brady Bunch but not watching the Lucy Show, they'll give the Lucy Show a chance. So those are the arrangements that Desi Arnaz was operating on. But I don't think Maureen McCormick ever made that appearance on the Lucy Show. So the next episode is To Move or Not to Move. I thought in this story the house was the star, because the focus was on the house. There was one funny scene with Greg bursting in the girls' room and Marcia screaming for like dear life. And just so upset that Greg will see her in her bra. And it kind of brings the point that it's not incest, because there's no shared DNA between those two. I also noticed that Florence Henderson's wig was smaller. Poor Florence, like in those early episodes, she had to wear that big heavy wig. She had to wear those big thick pantyhose. The poor woman must have been sweating. And I noticed that the wig was a lot smaller, so it wasn't as small. I think the problem with Florence Henderson's hair was that she wasn't that blonde. And it wasn't until later seasons where, they were like, nobody cares anymore. And it was interesting. The girls mentioned that they had not been living in the house as long as the boys. So that was like a little callback to the girls are still kind of new. This family is still kind of a new family. And also the house looked puke green for some reason. It didn't have that burnt orange look to it. But in this episode, it looked puke green. The next episode was awful. The grass is always greener. This episode, Blue, it was horrible. Florence has the big wig. She deserved all that sweating because her acting was really bad. And it was just kind of an episode where, Robert Reed and Florence Henderson could kind of like, just kind of like, play it up and try to, play it for laughs. And it was just bad. It was just, none of it was funny. Another thing that was extremely inappropriate in this episode was Susan Olsen's dress. This is the most baby I've ever seen Susan Olsen dressed as Cindy. The amount of embarrassment poor Susan had at that time. I mean, I can't. This outfit is so inappropriate. This is like Epstein Island level inappropriateness. The way she was dressed. You kind of have to ask, what demographic are they trying to pull for? And the last episode of that season is the Lost Locket, Found Locket. I didn't care about this episode too much. It was a Jan-centered one. The episode is interesting because I think it's the first hints that Jan is mentally unstable. The trope that Jan was a nutcase, and that was especially seen in the movies. I think it started with this episode. It might have been building before because they didn't really use Eve Plum that much, and she really enjoyed yelling at Marcia. So I think people noticed, how vocal she is when she's arguing with Marcia. So that's sort of like the start of, I think, where that trope came from. And that's it. And that is my look at the Brady Bunch. And I hope to have more reviews like this soon. Bye.